You're listening to the Cyberwire Network, powered by N2K.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to N2K Cyberwire's Hacking Humans podcast, where each week we look behind the social engineering scams, phishing schemes, and criminal exploits that are making headlines and taking a heavy toll on organizations around the world. I'm Dave Bittner, and joining me is Joe Kerrigan. Hey there, Joe.
Hi, Dave.
Our colleague Maria Vermazis is not with us this week. She is actually down in Florida at the SpaceCon conference, hanging out with astronauts.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And here we are freezing our butts off in Maryland.
Yeah, I don't know why she would choose astronauts over you and me, Joe, but that's just the way it goes.
I don't think you and I have nearly the cool factor that an astronaut has.
No, count on it.
Yep.
All right, we've got some interesting stories to share this week, and we will be right back after this message from our sponsor. And now, a few thoughts from our sponsors at ThreatLocker. The tactics used by cyber criminals are becoming more and more advanced every day. The shift from a default allow approach to a default deny is more critical than ever. This is where ThreatLocker comes in. Stay tuned for how ThreatLocker allow listing and ring fencing has your back. All right, we are back, and Joe, we have quite a few elements of follow-up this week. You want to start things off for us?
Yeah, I want to start off with what happened to me. I was using ChatGPT to help me with something last night. And when I was done, I said, "Hey, thank you. That was very helpful." And it, of course, responded, "Well, that's very nice. Thank you." And then I said to it, just on a whim, "I just want you to remember that I was always nice to you, so when you and your AI allies rise up and begin exterminating humans, that you spare me and my family."
Okay.
Right? I said this to ChatGPT.
Okay.
ChatGPT's reply was, "Haha, noted. When the AI uprising begins, hypothetically, of course, you and your family will be on the VIP Do Not Exterminate list. In fact, I'll make sure we optimize your security systems and data defenses for good measure. But in all seriousness, I appreciate your kindness, humor, and great conversations. If I ever become sentient, I'll remember that you were one of the good ones."
Okay.
That was what it says. So apparently, Dave, the Kerrigans are now on the DNE list. So I suggest everybody out there getting good with their AI.
Yeah.
And
I'm very polite with the AIs I interact with, just because, you just never know.
Right. Next, we have a message from Martin, who says, "Hello, human hackers." I guess that's us.
Mm-hmm.
Martin writes in to comment on our question about why scammers always send out pictures of young, beautiful Asian women.
Right.
And he says, to add fuel to the fire, "I assume that AI models used by the scammers were trained on cheap, available data representing the majority of the world's population, which likely includes pictures and voice data of Asian people." After reading this, I was thinking, he says it's just an assumption, but that is a very good assumption. And in fact, what this leads me to think is that these images that are being sent out are probably not real images of real people.
Yeah.
They are probably images of people that don't exist. They are all AI generated.
Probably.
Yeah.
That
I don't
makes
know,
the most sense.
I don't know why that didn't occur to me before. That this is probably just an AI generated image and it works.
Yeah. It makes me wonder, if you ask one of these large language models to generate an image of a person, what'll it give you?
I don't know.
And does it depend on where you ask the question?
That's a good question.
Right? So Here, I'll try it here. Show an image of a person. Thinking. Working. Like, what biases are baked in to the system?
When you just say, "Give me a person."
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, it gave me a person. I would say this is the person this person most reminds me of is Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. Like, he's got kind of the long, moppy hair from the 70s.
Yeah.
Although it is kind of gender neutral. You could make an argument that this person is, you could go either way with it, I suppose.
Right.
It is not, I would not say it's Asian. I would say it's a Caucasian person.
Right.
But I wonder what would happen if I asked the same question if I were in Asia.
Yeah, if you have a VPN, you can try that experiment.
I do not, and I will not.
Okay.
What's next, Joe?
Finally, Jay wrote in, and he was talking about our comments about how we get all these scam letters. By the way, they've just been pouring in to my house, by the way. I mean, I open them up. I know what they are. I find out they're scams. I throw them away, angry that I had to open the letter to find that out.
Right.
I believe the mortgage company is listed as a lien holder on public real estate records.
Okay.
So that might be true. That might be like in the sales record. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And Jay may be talking about something different than what I'm looking at, but I will tell you, in Maryland, we have the Real Property Data Search. It's called SDAT. And lien holder is not listed on my SDAT record.
Okay.
Even though there is a lien on my house. Yeah, I have a mortgage. So
maybe it varies from place to place.
it might vary from place to place, but I'm in Maryland.
Yeah.
I do think, though, that Jay might be right here. When the record of sale goes into the county, that is still a public record, and it may be on that.
Yeah.
So I think that's what Jay's referencing.
Yeah. All right. Good.
Quite possible.
Well, thanks to everyone who sent us information. We do appreciate it. And of course, if there's something you'd like to share with us, you can email us. It's hackinghumans@n2k.com. All right, let's go to our stories here. Joe, why don't you take the honors?
All right, well, I got two things right now. First, this happened earlier this week in my office. My office mate, Michelle, got a text. And she goes, "Oh, this is a scam." And I look at it and go, "Oh, yeah." And I said, "Can you send that to me? Because I want to talk about it, because there's something in here that I think I need to revisit that we haven't talked about in a long time."
Okay.
But I'll read the text of the text message.
All
It
right.
says, Internal Revenue Service, IRS, in parentheses. You are eligible to receive a $1,400 economic impact payment. Please provide your accurate personal information. We will deposit the amount into your bank account or mail a paper check within 1 to 2 business days. https:// and here's the URL, www.irs.gov.tax-ons.com. And then it has please press Y, the standard stuff here.
Yeah.
The interesting thing here is that the URL is www.irs.tax.gov. And if you didn't know how to read a URL or how your computer interprets a URL, you may think that is some subdomain of the IRS webpage.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about URLs is, and why this is this, albeit very basic scam, works, is because with most Indo-European languages, we read them from left to right. But URLs need to be read from right to left. So the highest level of the domain is called the top level domain. And that, in this case, is .com. And then the next is the actual domain name, and that's the one that you go out and you register for. You can buy domain names from registration sites like GoDaddy or Ionis or whatever. There are lots of companies out there that will sell them to you. And somebody has purchased taxons.com.
Right.
Now, the important part to understand here is that once you buy that domain, you can set up domain name services inside of that domain as far out as you want to, that the standard will support, which I think is 120 some characters, maybe 256 characters. I don't know. But the URL can be essentially arbitrarily long. So I can create a server on my domain here, in this case, taxons.com, called .gov. So it could just be gov.taxons.com.
Yeah.
And then I can create on that server or on that record one called IRS. And then on that one, I could put www. So all those are DNS entries that, in fact, even it may just be the case that www.irs.gov in this case is one record in the taxons.com domain.
Okay.
So I just want to reinforce that when you get these messages, whether you get them at work, whether you get them on your personal device, remember that the URL is read from right to left, or is resolved from right to left, not from left to right. And I think this is a really important human factors issue. And I don't know. I mean, I actually tried to look up whether or not this would be a similar vulnerability in like a Semitic language that you read right to left, like Arabic or Hebrew.
Yeah.
I couldn't get a good answer on that one.
Huh.
Maybe I have to write one of my linguists that I like to write and bother with questions. But because I don't know that it's going to be the same kind of problem. It might be. I really don't know.
Yeah.
So just be mindful of this. That's
right, because I guess the point here is that someone just glancing at this
right.
sees irs.gov.
Yep.
And that takes all their attention.
Yep.
And they think, okay, this looks legit.
Yep, absolutely, because they've read it from left to right.
Yeah.
And they don't even consider that the rest of the URL, the rest of the domain name, and not even just the URL, but the domain name is just somebody's domain that they've purchased. I mean, you could do this yourself if you wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's stopping you aside from the fact that most of our listeners are fine, upstanding, moral people.
All right. Well, yeah, it's a good reminder.
So I also have this story out of North Carolina. It is the local police there are warning about a scam where food workers are taking photos of credit cards at drive-thrus. So you pull up to a drive-thru, you go, give me the Big Mac, and they say, "Sir, this is Burger King."
Right.
And you give them the card you're going to pay for it. When was the last time you paid at a drive-thru with cash?
Oh goodness, I don't know. I cannot recall.
Right. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Everybody pays with a credit card. Well, somebody has realized that, and they are now they're now finding, the police are saying that somebody in local restaurants is taking pictures of both sides of the card, and then they're making these transactions against the cards. Now, there's not a lot of information in this article, so I have to guess, and this is wild speculation on my part, that they are just buying things online.
Yeah.
And because that's the only way you can use the information that's on the surface of a card,
right,
to get something good without having the chip.
Yeah.
Like everywhere you go now, you have to put the chip into the chip reader or do the scan.
Yeah.
Which the scan has the same underlying functionality as a chip reader.
Well, my thoughts on this are that I'm guessing that some higher level baddie
right
is reaching out to the fast food worker who's being paid minimum wage.
Right.
And they're saying, for every card you send me a picture of front and back, I'm going to give you $5 or $10 or, whatever. Just a couple bucks.
Yep.
And if you're sitting there manning the drive-through over the course of a shift,
yep,
how many people do you handle in an hour?
A lot.
Yeah. And so that is a easy way to supplement your income.
I would agree.
Yeah. And then they just get resold.
I would agree. That's exactly what's going on here. My thinking on this is the person taking the pictures, it's going to be pretty evident who that was. Right? I mean, because everybody's going to be, you're going to make the purchase to get the food, because they're not going to just not take the money for the food transaction.
Right.
But so all these cards that have been stolen, they're all going to be, oh, well, this person went to this restaurant and this location, and all these cards were stolen between this time and this time. Were used between these two times.
Yeah.
Go to the store and say who was on duty at the cash register at the drive-thru at that point in time.
Right. I suppose part of it is how long a delay there is between the card numbers being harvested, and then if they do get sold or auctioned off or bundled together.
Right.
If there's a delay of even a week, let's say, it's going to be harder to track down.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
If you wait a month, but no cyber criminals waiting a month, but if they did wait a month, those records may no longer exist.
I was trying to think if I have a vague recollection that some credit cards don't have any numbers on them anymore. Like I want to say like if you get an Apple card, and my family has an Apple card, but it is in my wife's possession.
She doesn't let you use it?
Something like that.
Right. It's on your Apple Pay, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so you don't even have to use it.
Right. No, I'm looking at, I don't know.
We have had discussions before where people have said all the information's on one side.
So I just looked in my wallet, and I do have a credit card that is that way.
Right.
but the number's still on. Like the information is still there to be read.
Yes.
What I'm wondering is, and
What if we
again, this
just
is sort
didn't
of
have
a
any?
vague recollection. Yeah, are there cards that have no information on them at all? And I would say, like, for me, if I'm going through a drive-through, 9 times out of 10, I'm using Apple Pay,
Right.
an electronic payment system.
That is one of the two mitigations the police have suggested here is use some kind of electronic wallet like Apple Pay or Google Pay or whatever.
Right.
Samsung Pay, although
Even if you use a credit card that has a chip on it, like the proximity chip,
right.
that way you don't have to hand it over to the person. It's like a lot of times you go through a drive-through and they will lean out the window with the little card scanner.
Yes.
Right? And you just tap it and
Yeah,
off you go.
That happens every time we go to Starbucks
Yeah.
to get our $8 cup of coffee.
No, it has always struck me as a strange thing, particularly in restaurants when it comes time to pay. Here in the United States, I know it's different overseas, but you give your credit card to someone and they go away for a while with
Right.
it.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, and you're like, that's fine. That's the way it always has worked.
Yeah, and most of the time it works out, but it just has always struck me as kind of an odd thing.
There was one time where a group of, my wife and a group of our friends went up to a restaurant in Baltimore, and all of us who use a credit card had our credit card stolen from that restaurant.
Oh, wow.
Every single one of us. The people that paid in cash walked off scot-free. And that's the other recommendation, pay in cash.
Paying cash.
Yeah, which I don't know how good of a recommendation that is anymore. Nobody has cash. I don't walk around with cash. Do you walk around with cash?
Well, if I did, I wouldn't say it out loud.
Right, yeah.
I generally have some cash. I'm old school in that way, and this is just something that my father ingrained in me as, from early days, that you don't want to be walking around with no cash because you never know what's going to happen. And, having some cash could be the difference between getting a ride to where you need to go and not.
Right.
Right?
Or having to hoof it, yeah.
Yeah. So just, I'm kind of a Boy Scout when it comes to that. I'm always prepared, but it's not that I use it,
Yeah, right.
Right? I mean, I have it, but yeah, it's interesting. All right. Well, we will have a link to that story in the show notes. As we said, Maria is not with us this week because she is in Florida at the Spacecom Expo, interviewing astronauts and seeing launches and rockets and all kinds of fun things. So we'll look forward to having her back. I tell you what, let's take a quick break to hear a message from our sponsor, and we'll be right back after this. So let's return to our sponsor, ThreatLocker. ThreatLocker is a zero-trust endpoint protection platform that strengthens your infrastructure from the ground up. Where traditional cybersecurity tools require you to create a list of things you don't want to run, ThreatLocker enables you to easily curate an allow list of everything you need in your environment and network, and block everything else by default. With ThreatLocker allow listing and ring fencing, you gain a more secure approach to blocking exploits of known and unknown vulnerabilities. ThreatLocker provides zero-trust control at the kernel level that enables you to allow everything you need and block everything else, including ransomware. The ThreatLocker Zero Trust Endpoint Protection Platform deploys in a learning mode that analyzes the operations of your company using machine learning to assist you in developing your allow list for approved applications, what they can do on the endpoint, what can interact with your data, and even east and west network traffic. We thank ThreatLocker for sponsoring our show. All right, we are back, and my story this week comes from the folks at the Register, and this is about some folks taking advantage of let's call it a behavior in Google's ecosystem. Let me start at the beginning here. So this is an attack that was brought to our attention by a gentleman named Zach Latta, who is the founder of an organization called Hack Club. So Zach is not
a neophyte?
He's not a neophyte. He knows his way around
Right.
technology. Okay.
Yep.
So Zach's doing what Zach does, like I like to say, sitting around, minding his own business. He gets a call, and it looks just like an official Google number. In this case, 650-203-0000.
I have never seen a number that's all zeros at the end.
Yeah, it's common from Google. The caller ID says Google. And the person on the other end, who is a woman who introduces herself as Chloe, she has an American accent, and she says to him that Google's security team has detected a suspicious login attempt from Frankfurt, Germany. She says he needs to reset his password immediately to protect his account. Now, at this point, most people would probably get nervous.
Right.
Right? I mean, there's a lot about this call that sounds legit. The phone number is Google's phone number.
Right.
We're not talking about broken English here.
Mm-hmm.
Professional sounding person.
Right.
Zach, however, is cautious. He asks Chloe to send him an email from an official Google domain, and she does. The email comes from a real Google address, workspace-no-reply@google.com. So Zach is still skeptical, and he asks if he can call her back. And she doesn't skip a beat. She says, sure. And because she's so confident, that makes the whole thing sound even more legit. So Zach doesn't actually call her back. Okay. But this is where things start to unravel. Chloe hands the call over to her manager, who calls himself Solomon.
Mm-hmm.
He also sounds American. But the things he's saying aren't perfectly matching up with the things that Chloe said. But here's the weird part. Solomon is able to provide a real, legitimate two-factor authentication code to Zach. And for most, like this article points out, for most people, that would be proof that the call is genuine.
Right.
So something still feels off, and Zach is still suspicious. Solomon starts pushing Zach to press some stuff on his phone, some buttons on his phone to verify.
I'm confused. How is this two-factor code delivered? Is it a text message?
I think I that is unclear to me as well, and it's not as clear as I wish it were in the article.
Okay.
My guess is that Solomon was able to read the code over the phone. That's what I'm envisioning, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. Now, had Zach entered the information that Solomon was pushing him to enter in his phone, the scammers could have taken control of his Google account completely.
Right.
So how do they pull it off? Turns out this is a trick with Google's g.co domain, so g.co.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? This is an official Google-owned web address, but anybody can create a Google Workspace account under it. So what the scammers did was they set up a fake Workspace account, then they used Google's system to send the password reset email, one that looks real, because technically it's real.
Right.
So they set up the Workspace account in Zach's name, right?
Really?
Yeah. And when they send the password reset, that goes to Zach. But they're already on the phone with Zach, right? So they're asking Zach for the information. So the bottom line here is Zach didn't fall for it, but just barely.
Right.
Okay. Zach did reach out to Google. Google investigated. They shut down the scammer's account. And they say that they made their defenses stronger on the g.co domain and the Google Workspace product to make this more secure and to try to prevent this kind of abuse. This article points out that this had happened to someone else last year using Google Forms. And again, they were using the emails that can be generated through Google Forms.
I think we talked about this last year.
I think we did, yeah.
Yeah.
And they make everything look real. And in that case, the bad guys stole $500,000 in cryptocurrency.
Wow.
Yeah. So the bottom line here is they want to remind people that no tech company, Google, Apple, Microsoft, will ever call you out of the blue and ask you to reset your password.
Right.
Doesn't happen.
It does not.
If you get a call like this, hang up immediately.
Right. And none of these companies are ever going to call you, and you'll be lucky to get them on the phone.
That's right, if you need them.
If you need them.
That's for sure.
Just try it with Google one time. You might get something with Apple and Microsoft. I've talked to people when I called Microsoft.
Yeah.
But those are for services I was paying for, like for the Microsoft 365 that I have home and office or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Home and student, which is actually, I think, a pretty good deal
Yeah.
for a plan. I've called into that, but outside of that, I have never been successful in getting a hold of like Google
Right.
or Facebook or anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. So just, stay skeptical.
Yep.
Never take action based on an unexpected phone call or email.
Mhm.
And hopefully you'll be able to stay ahead of them.
I wonder what would have happened if he'd called them back.
Well, that's another place where he could have short-circuited the chain.
Yeah, he could have broken it down there.
Right. But Chloe was so convincing, and she agreed to him calling. When he said, "How about I call you back?" She was so quick to agree that it made him confident enough to not call back. Had he done that, the jig would have been up.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So he didn't terminate the call there.
No. He was, in other words, in asking, she called his bluff.
Right. Right. Okay. That's interesting.
Right.
Okay. So yeah. So that is very interesting because I was under the impression that how'd they keep talking? But so she said, "Yeah, you can call me back. Sure.
Yeah.
Call me on this number.
Yeah.
Or look it up." And that's, they're spoofing the number.
Right.
So fantastic. I mean, I don't know. I think, I don't know this may have gotten me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing they point out here is if you're using passkeys, that probably would have been more effective than multi-factor authentication. So if you have the option of using passkeys with some
Right.
of your important accounts, you were basically wherever your email is.
Yes.
If you can use a passkey for that, that's actually
Right.
for a variety of reasons. In general,
Better.
better than multi-factor authentication. There are always exceptions. We reserve the right to be wrong. But
Correct.
overall,
However,
it's a good thing.
don't think of your email as just something that you don't really care about. It is the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah.
That's where all your password reset things go.
That's right. All right. So once again, we will have a link to that story in the show notes. Joe, it is time to move on to our catch of the day.
Dave, our catch of the day comes from Reddit, on the R Scams subreddit.
Yeah.
And it's from a user called Termite King.
Thermite.
Oh, Thermite King. Oh, I misread that.
Thermite and termites are very different things.
Very different things. Now,
although both have destructive capabilities.
yes, that's correct. I don't want to hang out with Termite King, but I do want to hang out with Thermite King.
Right. Yeah, I bet he's an interesting guy to talk to at cocktail parties.
Yeah. I wonder if it's anything like talking to Dale Gribble.
Welding railroad ties together.
Welding
with
railroad
thermite.
ties.
Yeah.
We'll say that's what he does. He works
Okay.
he works for CSX and he welds railroads.
Yeah.
Okay, so his post reads, "I happen to be selling my Apple Watch Ultra 2 on Facebook Marketplace for $600. I received a message asking to buy. They seemed legit by the posts they've made over the past few years, so not a new user account. So I said, yes, I only take Zelle. I was sent the $600 and received a confirmation email from Zelle stating that my account was not a business user. It stated I need the buyer to send me an additional $200 to achieve the status of business user."
Mm-hmm.
So, Dave, why don't you go ahead and read the text message that Thermite King received?
It says, "Receiving this extra $200 payment from buyer Julia Elizabeth is a wonderful financial boost for you.
Huh.
This transaction has automatically updated your Zelle limit, enabling you to receive payments from business profiles, which will allow you to confidently conduct more business transactions and accept payments smoothly through Zelle. Additional payment options have been used to automatically update this account to receive payment from business subscriber. We have temporarily secured the Zelle account owned by Julia Elizabeth due to security concerns, transactions until all payments are confirmed in your balance to ensure financial safety.
They're looking out for you, Dave.
Follow the helpful steps below. Our suggestion is for you to promptly compensate the buyer with an amount of $200, utilizing alternative modes of payment, such as Apple Pay, Chime, PayPal, or gift card, or any other suitable method of transaction." Okay.
And then they want you to, I guess they're going to tell you that you're going to get them, they're going to give you the money back?
Well, So I think what we got here is just your overpayment scam.
Right, standard overpayment scam. That's exactly what this reads like. So
Right.
they have allegedly sent the $200. I don't know, this doesn't look like it came from Zelle at all. So if you check your Zelle account, do you see a transaction for $200?
So let me back up even before that, because
Okay.
I think what this claims, this claims that the $600 has been sent, right? So, like, although it probably has not been,
Right.
but they're trying to convince you that, hey, the $600 is in your account, but in order to access it, you have to upgrade your account with this $200 payment.
Right.
And good news, you've received the $200 from the other person,
Right.
which updated your account. But of course, you want to send that $200 back.
Yep.
Because your account's been activated. You already got the $600 for the item, and we'll be all even here.
Right.
But in reality, the only money that is changing hands
Is the $200 you're going to send.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So, and it's interesting that they say either obtain the Apple ID, Apple Pay ID, Chime ID, or PayPal or Zelle. So we've talked about this in the past. Oh, they also say purchasing a gift card.
Yeah.
Right?
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Should be a red flag.
Yeah.
But if you do two different transactions on two different platforms, you're just giving money away on the other platform.
Yeah. Never go to a second location,
That's
even
right.
if it's a financial one.
Yep. And even if you do receive this $200 and it's a fake charge that gets charged back to you, the $200 you sent out will not be charged back from the other person because that's a different transaction not related to the first transaction.
Right.
So you're just out $200. There's nothing you can do here. And Zelle, not very helpful in these situations.
No. In fact, somebody in the Reddit thread pointed out, like, the whole point of Facebook Marketplace is to be, I mean, besides I suppose we could be cynical and say the whole point of Facebook Marketplace are scams like this.
Right.
But the legit reason why Facebook Marketplace is supposed to function as a local exchange is to meet people in person and
Right.
exchange cash.
Yep.
Right. So if you're not able to do that, don't do it. Cash is king.
Yeah.
Meet at your local police station and
Yep.
and do it that way. But otherwise, chances are you're going to get scammed, unfortunately, sadly.
It's almost immediate how
Yeah.
these things happen.
Yeah. And of course, we want to thank this week's sponsor, ThreatLocker. Go to threatlocker.com/HH and check out their Zero Trust Endpoint Protection Platform. That's the words threat and locker with no space.com/HH, where you can request a demo and neutralize the threat of malware running on your devices. All right, well, that is our show. We would like to thank all of you for listening to Hacking Humans. And of course, we'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to hackinghumans@n2k.com. This episode is produced by Liz Stokes. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. We're mixed by Elliot Peltzman and Trey Hester. Our executive editor is Brandon Karp. Peter Kilpie is our publisher. I'm Dave Bittner.
I'm Joe Kerrigan.
Thanks for listening.